Welcome back to the Chronicles of the King podcast, where we take a deep dive into the life and legacy of Elvis Presley. I'm Megan.
And I'm Tessa, and we are two 20-something Elvis fans dedicated to keeping his legacy alive with a research-based approach.
Whether you're a die-hard Elvis fan or simply curious about a man who changed the course of music and culture, you're in the right place.
We are here to unpack the myths, explore the music, and get to the heart of Elvis's enduring impact.
Every other week, we'll bring you research, untold stories, and fresh perspectives on Elvis's journey. From his humble beginnings to his legendary performances, we're here to shed light on it all.
So settle in for a podcast made with a lot of TLC for the man himself, one story at a time. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a really fun episode for you with our very special guest, Matt Stone. You guys may know him as an Elvis tribute artist, but he's more of like an Elvis historian. He knows so much about Elvis's specifically accessories and jewelry, so we're really excited to talk to him about that today. In particular, we're going to be talking about That's the Way It Is, which is, as you can see behind Megan, one of her very favorite Elvis eras.
Favorite.
We're going to be talking all things from Elvis's look, some jewelry, the gear, and musical setup. So we hope you enjoy.
Yeah, so with that brief introduction from Tessa, I think to start off, Matt, can you tell us a little bit how you became an Elvis tribute artist? What got you interested in it in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. I got started because of the show Full House. That's how I first found Elvis's music. It's funny, there's a lot of other Elvis tribute artists who have like the same story that I've heard. And but I saw John Stamos sing Jailhouse Rock, and then I looked up the original version, and I fell in love with it. And uh, funny story regarding That's the Way It Is with Full House. So there was an impersonator named Pete Wilcox who he was kind of like the Elvis of the sitcom era. He was on Full House, and I think he was on Happy Days. He was on quite a few sitcoms in the 80s playing Elvis. And he was called by the producers of Full House to say, "Hey, can you like come and coach John for this episode where he has to impersonate Elvis?" And he said, "Well, I can't do that, but I can nail you." He had like an early copy of That's the Way It Is, and he mailed it to John Stamos for him to study That's the Way It Is for the show.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. I do love That's the Way It Is. It is my favorite era. Is
Fantastic.
there a particular reason that you're drawn to this era? Because I know that's when I look at the content that you put out, that's your dedication. You're dedicated to recreating That's the Way It Is.
Yeah, I just love it. I think Elvis looked his best, performed his best. I think that the band still had a raw quality where once you get to like 72, 73, the set list was still staying pretty consistent. And they were kind of just doing the same show over and over again. And especially once you get to like 75, then like they were hardly changing anything over the next 2 years. But if you go through That's the Way It Is, and you compare it, even the different shows, half the time, like One Night with You is much slower from one show to the next show. And he's singing, I can't, did I say One Night with You? Yeah, I did. One Night with You is very different. I Can't Stop Loving You it's much slower, it's groovier. It has a lot more of that raw edge that I think he should have continued leading into. I think a lot of the theatricality that came about in like late 71, 72, kind of took away from just Elvis's rawness that made him so incredible. Not that he wasn't still great, but I think That's the Way It Is just really captures Elvis at his absolute peak, where he was still hungry to prove that he was relevant, because he was fresh off the comeback special, fresh off his Vegas comeback. But at the same time, he was also trying to prove that he wasn't just a relic of the past, now singing in Las Vegas. He's introducing all sorts of new contemporary songs in 1970, Sweet Caroline, Bridge Over Troubled Water, You've Lost That Love and Feeling. There are so many just new introductions that were absolutely incredible for him, and proved that he wasn't just an old rock and roll relic, that he was still a very relevant artist who could handle a showroom like nobody else. I mean, he was playing the biggest showroom in Las Vegas.
That's really interesting. I just read this book called The Comeback of the King, which is all about the 68 comeback, which is like my favorite era. But specifically how that laid the groundwork for the Vegas residencies. And they were talking about how later in like 73, 74, like how he was feeling less like creatively inspired. It was like almost like a hurdle that he had leaped over and like done these amazing Vegas shows, and then it was like, okay, like I've
Yeah,
done
like he's
that,
done it now. Yeah.
and interestingly that, there were times when he would try to switch up the set list, but like last minute he would be like, no, let's just do what we already
Yeah,
did,
like
and that
opening
it was
night
less
in
creative.
74. Yeah.
Yeah.
Opening night in 74, he tried to reformat the entire set. He opened with Big
Right.
Boss Man and all that, and it was dropped by the next show because
Yeah.
I think that by that point he was just so discouraged and he felt like everybody just wanted him to sing Hound Dog and didn't care
Right.
about the rest of the
Mhm.
stuff. There's an interesting story in 71 when he's first really bringing How Great Thou Art out as like a set regular. He did it a handful of times the previous year, but it's finally become a set regular. And there were people in the audience yelling, "We don't want to hear this church music," and get this out of the show. And
Right.
I think at that point, Elvis was much more prone to, kind of still fight for what he wanted. Where by 74, 75, he just was singing Olivia Newton-John for some of
Yeah.
these and letting
Yeah,
it go.
exactly.
Mhm.
So can you like, I'm sure we all know that that's the way it is like a super defining piece of media in the Elvis history. Like
Hmm.
we only have, very few concert movies or,
Yeah.
really movies like that about Elvis. Up until Epic, which is, going to
Hmm.
be a really
Yeah.
exciting thing to go and see.
Hmm.
But, that was so defining. So what do you think are some of the key like factors of the actual, I'll say not necessarily like the performances, but like the film itself that make it so like important for, I guess, ETAs and stuff to come back and look at as like a reference piece?
I think a lot of ETAs in general kind of just get washed up in a generic vision of who Elvis was.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is just aloha. And like I was just talking to a friend of mine who just played for one of the Elvis festivals, and he was saying that every single ETA, every single one of them who wanted to do Suspicious Minds, they wanted to do the shoulder roll ending of That's the Way It Is,
Mhm.
but they wanted to do all the rest of the song like Aloha. And I think that's a really good example where there's kind of an overgeneralization of who Elvis was, how his career was. I've never heard a single ETA sing "I Can't Stop Loving You" with the "For I'll just live my life" instead of "For I'll." It's in by 71, 72, he had dropped it down.
Mm-hmm.
But 69, 70, he was singing a different melody there. And I think people just kind of like they ignore the changes. They ignore what I think is Elvis's prime part of his life, and they kind of just impersonate a vague idea of Elvis that they have in their head, and also just kind of impersonate the other ETAs in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
I think there's
Where
like some really specific defining. I'm like a music history person,
hmm
I'm a graduate student, and so I've written a paper that I'm like hoping to expand upon about the different eras of Elvis's voice. And
hmm
I think like exactly what you're saying, there's so many like I kind of defined like 5 key eras, and then when I go into really nitty gritty it, you're like almost every year, especially from like 69 to 77, there's like a slight difference in his
for sure,
voice. And I
there
think that
absolutely
what
is.
makes ETAs who are like astounding versus like okay or good,
It's all those nuances. You're
it's those
entirely correct.
nuances.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for me, if I were uh, taking Elvis's career, I would probably go like I think 54 to mid 56 is an era. Then like
Mm-hmm.
the September 56 album to 58 is an era.
Yep.
60 to 63, 64 to that's where it gets weird because
Yeah.
like 66 he's starting to show like some of the country grit that he leans
Mm-hmm.
into a lot more by 69. So there's just kind of like there's a gradual evolution for sure. And by 71 he had kind of developed this weird shaky quality that you really hear in the studio where I mean he was having throat problems and all sorts of other things. Like his pre-show routine involved like throat injections. I can only imagine singing with throat injections.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
something that was like it was they put liquid cocaine on his vocal
Hmm.
folds. I think it was in
Hmm.
Dr. Nick's book or Kathy
Yeah.
Westmoreland's book, one of the two. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm
I
getting
think
a
it was
degree
Dr. Nix. I've read both books.
in voice pedagogy, and so I'm like a voice science, voice health, like I understand all these things. I was like, physically that's not really possible. And then also
Hmm.
like what were they doing, where were they putting it, like what were they really like
Hmm.
whatever they were doing to him,
Mhm.
in
Yeah, he
terms
had
of
those
dealing
little
with
blue vials of liquid cocaine that he'd also use
like, huh?
as his sinus
Oh.
clearer. I think it was
Yeah,
in Ricky
like
Stanley's book.
Oh.
He said that um, he was like sniffling, and I was like, "I got just the thing," and he gave him the liquid cocaine to put
oh
a
my
cotton swab
gosh.
in and just
Fixes
like
everything.
clear his
That's how
sinuses.
Megan felt when I gave her Afrin.
Not again. That was a birthday
Hmm.
mishap. I was high on Motrin, Afrin the whole
Hmm.
week. But I'm not a
Sorry.
musical expert when it comes to voice and all this. I know we talked about this with our friend Dwight Eisenhower, and then we're
Hmm.
talking about the raspiness of Elvis's voice, kind of like, I would say 69, 70,
Hmm.
getting into That's the Way It Is. Those are obviously the years that you try to replicate. Is there a way that you try to encourage, like, bring the raspiness in, but also protecting, like, your voice and vocal health?
It's very tough, and I'm honestly yet to find a good way to go about it. Tessa, if you have any advice, I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
Um, for me, a lot of it is just trying not to overdo it because
Mhm.
there are certain ETAs, and like I don't want to name anybody, but like the ones who do the raspy thing, like they way overdo it, and all of a sudden it just
Mhm.
sounds like they're screaming the whole time. There are like times that I'll watch a video myself and I'm like, wow, I'm really overdoing that. So there is it's very nuanced, and sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's raspy. I find my That's Alright Mama in the opening to be very very over raspy a lot of times. Then I went and listened to opening night a little while ago,
Mhm.
so like every week. Um and I was like, wow, he's not pushing it. Like it really
Yeah.
depends on the time.
And I
And
think too with him, like he didn't use it all the time. Like he
hmm
did use it,
Yeah.
but it's in those very specific couple of years, and I feel like it was like not sustainable to keep doing that.
hmm
And so I guess if you're an ETA specializing in that sort of like, I'm thinking like the American sound sessions, like
hmm
those that kind of
yeah, and
sound,
he
you
had a
have to be
cold when he sang
super
those songs. So
right. You have to be
Mhm.
super careful with how you're using your voice because also like even for Elvis, like he couldn't keep with that like
Oh, yeah.
raspy
hmm
grittiness
Mhm.
because it's just not sustainable like long
yeah,
term
like
as a
Pete
vocalist.
Mhm.
Storm, VTA Pete Storm, who he doesn't do Elvis anymore. He like dropped his entire Elvis career
Hmm.
right in his prime and just started doing Johnny Cash
Mhm.
because all of a sudden he was starting to have a lot of vocal issues. And what was the
Yeah,
era he
Mhm.
did? It was 69, 70 primarily.
it makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, so hopefully that doesn't happen to me, God forbid. But
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
yeah, I did a 68 show uh 3 days ago, and then I
Mhm.
did another one last night, both by venue request.
Mhm.
And like it's tough. Like
Yeah.
it's really hard on the
Mhm.
vocal cords, and especially because a lot of modern concerts are formatted to be like, 2 hours,
Hmm.
hour and a half at the
Mhm.
minimum. Also, the show most of the time was 55 minutes,
Yeah.
and we do two
It's
shows a
short.
night, of course, but
Mhm.
like it's hard to format going for 2 hours straight,
Mhm.
Yeah.
um, doing that rasp.
And I think bearing in mind like his mindset too at that time of I have to like prove them all wrong.
Hmm.
It's almost like
Oh, yeah.
he let this like technique all not entirely because he's Elvis, but
Mhm.
he let it go out the window a little bit because he's like
Hmm.
so desperate to prove that like he still has it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that absolutely
Whereas
makes sense.
like vocally he's like not concerned, but he's just giving it his all like as much 100%,
Hmm.
which is not always sustainable, but it makes those performances so like
Hmm.
interesting to
It makes
watch,
them so
interesting to
incredible.
listen to.
Yep.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's one of the things that's
Mhm.
just so great about That's the Latest is he's pushing, he's working as hard as he possibly can, and I don't necessarily think that he was working as hard as he possibly could by 73. He was still
Right.
doing his best, but like he was having all sorts of other problems that
Mhm.
were,
Mm-hmm.
bringing his ability down. And
Mm-hmm.
when I go and I compare 70 to a show and 73 to 74, like there's no comparison at all about which performer is superior to the other. And which is why I was actually I was surprised the other day. I asked a question to my followers, which movie do you like better? That's the Way It Is or On Tour? And I was surprised at
Mhm.
how many people said On Tour, but a lot of them were
Mm-hmm.
giving reasoning for the band being better. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Okay.
I can kind of see that a
Mhm.
little bit. Maybe they were a little bit tighter at that point,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
Elvis himself as a performer is just there's no comparison at all. He looks great, he
Mhm.
sounds great, he moves great, everything is exactly as it should be.
Hmm. And so one of the things in the documentary, and that's the way it is, that I think is so interesting for people to see is all the like behind the scenes rehearsal footage, which
Mm-hmm.
speaking again of epic, I'm very excited to see more of. Um, but do you think that's something that makes it stand out as well, of like showing him as a band leader and like really as the director, music director of this whole operation? And
For
do
sure.
you think that like he's overlooked as a music kind of director or visionary, I suppose,
For
because
sure.
he's
And I
Elvis?
wish that we had I wish that we had even more insight as to what it was. And it's not only that's the way it is, that's the way it is a little bit of it, but you watch the outtakes.
Right.
Stuff like you know, the part where they're going with the vocals on Bridge Over Troubled Water and he's talking
Mm-hmm.
about you know, the men coming in and doing see how they shine together, oh if you need a friend and the girls echoing it. He's arranging all of this um himself. There's another part with words. He gets the backing singers to do the harder way part. Um, and yeah, he's putting it all together himself. And you look at like in the 1971 sessions, I think it was "O Come All Ye Faithful," and there's another. It was "Amazing Grace." He got an arrangement credit for both of those. So
Yeah.
I would love to know what exactly what he did for those songs. And you listen to one of my favorite things, like I'm an FTD nerd. I just love all the FTD
Mm-hmm.
albums. Especially you go into like Cafe Europa, which is the GI Blues one, and the Blue Hawaii one, its name is escaping me. In like 60 61, almost every song that was in an Elvis movie, if you listen to take one to the final take, it's
Mm-hmm.
entirely different.
Right.
Like there's a version of What She Really Like that was entire it swung the whole time, not just the last
Mm-hmm.
verse. Pocket Full of Rainbows sounded like Summer Kisses, Winter Cheers. Big Boots was fast. Like it was a whole for you call your daddy Big Boots is a whole big
Mm.
thing. And Elvis, I guess, you know, he fixed all of these himself to fit
Mm-hmm.
himself, and you can tell when he's experimenting with different ways to phrase things. And
Mm.
specifically on Cannot Falling in Love, sometimes he uses like a long A and sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
depending on what he's doing. And
Mhm.
he's experimenting and he's trying to find the best way to do it. And once you get later, like you listen to, you know, the American Sound album or even back in Nashville,
Mm.
and it takes, I feel like there's less difference. He's not trying to
Yeah.
be as nuanced as he was, but I mean, he's still incredible, and it's my favorite
Yeah,
era.
there's
So I
that
can't.
one for in the ghetto when he added the
Mm-hmm.
final and his mama cries to really
Mm-hmm.
that final like addition of
Mm-hmm.
that lyric
Yeah, and it was in the key of A
really
at first, and
to
then they brought it
create
up.
that right. And like he was arranging things from the get-go, and you hear it
Mm-hmm.
in like all of these, you know, different outtakes and
Mm-hmm.
recordings and stuff that are available. I definitely love like this documentary. I think it's great to show people who don't really understand like that Elvis didn't just sing it, like he really
Mm-hmm.
had everything to his liking, you know, having the white influence of the groups behind him and the black influences, and really
Mm-hmm.
showing that musical,
Mhm.
like he had all of these genres that, you know, he really originated rock and roll from.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
he kind of displays them, I think, really perfectly. And that's the way it is. And with those early biggest shows of like, you know, we have all of these influences behind us. We have horns
Mm-hmm.
and we have, you know, drums and we have rock and roll, we have country, we have blues, we have jazz. Like you have everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like to
He was
show it.
creating a music that was uniquely for everybody that everybody could
Right.
enjoy.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
now that you mentioned about, you know, creating that sound with the
Mhm.
horns, I read something like so incredibly insightful and um a little while ago, or
Mhm.
no, I saw it in a video. There was this guy who he was not an Elvis fan, and he reviewed every
Mhm.
single Elvis movie, and he just watched
Mm-hmm.
them all. And he was talking about A Little Less Conversation, and I never thought of it before, but A Little Less Conversation really laid the groundwork for that sound that was to come afterwards. I think that, you know, the
Mhm.
horns, the beat, the bass, everything that's going on in that song is laying the groundwork for everything that happened in American Sounds. Like A Little Less Conversation was the
Yeah.
first experiment to see, can he sing this style? Okay, let's try it with Suspicious Minds. I
Yeah.
thought that was
Mhm.
so cool because I listened to
Because
it again.
it's almost a Motown kind of
Yeah,
vibe.
right.
And it's
Yeah.
really interesting actually. I
Yeah,
never
it's that
thought about
Memphis
that.
soul vibe, and
Yeah.
yeah, Billy
Mhm.
Strange just like did such a good job with that soundtrack, and Mac Davis too.
Yeah.
Obviously, Live a
Mhm.
Little, Love a Little is my favorite movie. So if I bring it up, that's why.
Don't
You
even
know,
bother with Tessa.
I don't even think I've seen that one. I think that's what I haven't
You
seen.
haven't.
Oh
How
my
do you
gosh,
know?
it's so good.
I'm
Well,
so.
It's
I kept up with your
Is
checklist.
that? Yeah, my checklist was really bad. There's just, I just
You gave
can't. I
up.
don't know. There's just something about it. Not that movie
mhm.
specifically, but just the movies. Like, I, if it's an early one, I'm good with it. But
Live a Little, Love
I,
a Little is unlike any other movie that he ever did because
maybe I did see
Yeah.
it.
it's like
I have it ticked off. I saw it.
You did?
I just haven't seen Clambake, Stay Away Joe, Speedway, or The Trouble with Girls. Those are the only ones I
you're not
haven't
really
seen.
missing much with those other ones. Clambak's not as
Exactly.
bad as people think it is.
Mhm.
Stay Away Joe is just weird,
Yeah.
and Trouble with Girls
Yeah.
is also weird. It's Elvis's lowest screen time in a movie
Mm.
that he ever
Mhm.
had. But yeah, Live a Little, Love a Little. It's just so good. I was reading an article the other
Mhm.
day from the Telegraph, and it was talking about how Elvis's movies were changing
Mhm.
um, by that point, and it was, marveling at how at one point I think it was Norman Schwarzenegger, it was Hal Wallace said that Elvis will never go to bed in an Elvis Presley film. Like that will never happen. Then all of a
Hmm.
sudden,
Yeah.
you go to Say Away Joe and
Yeah.
Live a Little, Love a Little. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, now Elvis is cursing on screen. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
Elvis is grown up now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
definitely the later 60s. They're starting to push that envelope a little bit. You can see that.
Especially with Change of Habit.
That is
That's
my
her
favorite.
favorite.
Oh, you have changed it. That was my
I
favorite movie
have.
for a very long time as like
Well,
a
because it's like corny, but like,
mhm,
and
It
they're
is.
trying to be like with the times, and
mhm,
it probably was with the times, like
almost in
then,
a bad way.
and you look
Yeah.
back and you're like,
I
like,
don't think that works
Mhm.
for autism.
yeah, I don't think it's as
No.
progressive as they were thinking it was at the time, but maybe it was at the time,
Yeah.
But now we look back and we're like, and you could tell he just
Don't
doesn't.
do that.
He's over it at that point, but I
Mhm.
just
hmm
like I love it because it's kind of corny and like I don't know.
hmm
It's fun. I like it better than some of the other like more obvious boy meets girl. Like blah, blah, blah,
hmm
Which is
I
most of
like
them.
the unusual ending, I guess. If she's like, should I pick Jesus or Elvis? And it's like, oh my
hmm
gosh,
Oh
unclear
my gosh, there was
which she
in that
chooses.
same thing I was watching of the guy who
Mhm.
was reviewing the movies. He said that he had to watch the end of Change of Habit 3 times and
Yeah,
keep rewinding it because he felt like they were trying to say that Elvis was Jesus at the
you
end.
know,
He was like,
it's,
okay. And if
it's
you
a little
watch it, it's
border.
funny. Yeah, the
Little.
end the ending of the movie, it cuts from like a statue of Jesus, and then it'll cut
Mhm.
to Elvis, and then it'll cut to a
Hmm.
statue of Jesus, then it'll cut to Elvis. And Mary Tyler Moore is like trying to like he's like,
Yeah,
could it be?
yeah,
Okay. I don't think
it's
that's what they were going for,
crazy.
but
Yeah.
the editing was bad.
Yeah, I think it's, in
Like,
my opinion, it's she can have both.
Yeah.
That's what
I
I
mean,
thought, but
Obviously.
you
that's
can't
what
be
I
a
thought.
nun but it's a movie.
Do
Yeah.
whatever.
I
Do
don't think that
whatever.
that ending would have flew very well if that's
No.
what.
Right, right. It's just I just love that it's corny. Also love
Mhm.
that I can wear this sweatshirt and people don't know, but
Oh,
I
I've got
know.
my camera like
Yeah.
right in front of
There you
right in
go.
front of you, so I couldn't see it, but now I see
You're
it. That's
good.
awesome.
Yeah. And people don't really know. And you're like, I'm in
hmm
It's
disguise.
very subtle.
hmm I think it's so funny
So
how like when he talks about the house he wants in that movie,
yeah.
um, and says it's from Shelby County, Tennessee. It's
Mhm.
like he's just describing himself.
Like
Yeah.
they're trying to make it him but not him, but it's
hmm
also like, and you
Mhm.
can
hmm
tell he's so like he's
And the
just
hair
his
was not
hair.
great. The
No, the
hair was not
hair.
it. I'm
No.
He's
sorry.
hamming
That
it
was
up.
Priscilla's idea, but she did a terrible job.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. She should have. He should have kept it the other way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
hmm
So I
So,
guess like shifting gears a little bit,
Yeah.
let's talk about Elvis's gear, a little bit about the equipment, the instruments he used during
mhm.
That's the
hmm
Way It Is. We know you have a video about all the different, equipment that he used
hmm
and specifically the
Mhm.
microphones. So do you want to like nerd out with us a little bit and let us
Absolutely,
know
I do.
all about these different things? We'd
I
love
would
it.
absolutely love to. So
Okay.
one of the things that I really wanted to do when I started putting together my show
Mhm.
is I wanted to make it like as visually accurate as
Hmm.
possible.
Mhm.
Um, I guess you could say that I kind of just got fed up with watching all the shows with like you know, a 2010s drum set and like the wireless mics and the pyrotechnics and the strobes that were not on Tiger Man and like all the different things. It's just like when I was, I think, 15 years old, I bought an RE15 microphone, which is the microphone that Elvis used from like 68 to 74. And like that was kind of the start of it all. When I got that microphone, like all of a sudden it just started to feel right. And then it was, you know, we should probably get the Ronnie Tutt drum set. You know, we should probably get the right stands, get everybody playing the right guitars. And it just started to expand where all of a sudden I need the amps to be right. And then that wasn't good enough. So we just kind of rearranged the whole show where like we have the psych behind us when it's available in whatever theater that has, you know, the colors arranged for whatever colors were on Elvis at the time. We have yellow rugs that go over the risers to create that yellow riser that was in Las Vegas, just to make it feel right. And it really just came out of my own frustration with seeing videos of Elvis's and being like, I'm totally brought out of the illusion. Like this man, I will never look at him and like think even for a split second this is Elvis, because the surroundings are just so wrong. It's like, okay, if Elvis was a time traveler, maybe this could be him. But I wanted to create a much more theatrical experience around it, which is something that like Beatles bands have no problem doing. Like all the different Fab Four, but like Beatles, they go out and they've got the Beatles amps and the Beatles guitars and Beatles microphones and all the different things to make you think that they're the Beatles. But for a lot of Elvis's, it was just like, why would I care about that? They just want a jumpsuit. So for me, that's what I wanted to do. And some of the stuff is fake. Some of it is like modern replicas that I've made. Some of it is still stuff that I haven't bought yet. Like the bass amp, I still haven't bought one because they're always very expensive. They're around $2,000, but also they're 175 pounds, so nobody will ship them.
Right.
So I'd have to like drive to Maryland or wherever they are to pick one up.
Megan could pick it up for you.
Okay, yes. Actually, I think there is one.
I'll have to get somebody else to pick it up and put it in my
Your
car.
brother. Yeah.
I'll take them. There you go.
Yeah,
So-
but there's a there's a lot of stuff that I haven't done yet, but it really just all started from buying that microphone in the first place, and holding it just felt right. And I felt like I could portray Elvis better with that microphone. And then, you know what, I can portray Elvis better if my mic stand is chrome. And it has like the pump action thing on it that they don't make microphones like that anymore, because how else are you going to do the let's see if I can get any water out of this thing joke?
Yeah.
Like you can't do that with modern microphone stands. Like there's all the little things that make the illusion more whole. And a lot of people ask me, like the Shure Vocal Masters that I have as monitors, like they're not actually operating monitors. They're empty. I took the speakers out of them because they don't sound good. And now I use them as road cases. But somebody asked me the other day, like, does anybody actually notice this stuff? And no, probably not. But they know that it's better and closer for some reason that they can't even understand. Like they might not understand why it's better, but they just know this feels familiar. Like this looks, this feels
visually.
like what
I was
I've
gonna
seen,
say.
and that's the way it is.
Right. I had a question about, using this old technology or like, like the microphone and stuff. Like, is that ever, if you go to a venue, is it ever like an issue to try and get it set up, or like, because it's older or not as compatible,
It's never an issue for me. It is an issue for sound guys to figure out how to mix it.
Right. I guess.
So funny. The other day at this venue, I have a digital mixer that I bought a little while ago because I've started running sound myself. I started running sound myself for a lot of venues just because like the one sound is expensive. Like they'll charge me like $4,000 for the sound techs, and most of them are just sitting there while we're doing the work. So I bought it all so I could do it myself. And we were at this venue and they had a sound guy. And he started mixing my microphone and just it sounded awful. And like I've heard how good this microphone sounds. And it sounded bad. So I got my digital mixer out, and I told him like you can mix everything else, but I'm gonna deal with the microphones. And I just sent him the lines to run. at the end of the show, it was so funny. He asked me, "Hey, what kind of microphone was that? I really like the crisp sound of it." I was like, "It's an RA-15." So, I've had good experience and bad experience with it, depending on the sound, man. Some people can't mix it, and some people it sounds great. Sometimes it sounds great, sometimes it sounds bad. And his response, I thought it was so funny. He went, "Oh, that's only if you have a bad sound man, though." And I was like, "But who mixed it this show?"
Yeah.
I was kind of talking about you, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
was
curious.
wondering. Yeah, just because it's like it's so different. I think from even if you watch like the Ultimate Finals and stuff like that, like they're all using just contemporary technology and like contemporary drum sets and even the vocals like. Specifically, I'm thinking of in the Ultimate show, like when I'm contrasting and comparing, we heard some of the original singers, like Terry Blackwood and Estelle Brown and everything. They kind of like joined up together, and if I'm forgetting anyone, I don't remember. But they had like an experience thing where they all just sang the background vocals, and the sound was like, oh my gosh, this is what we got chills. Like, this is what we hear. This is what we hear. And versus like at the Ultimates. Like you have these people singing behind them. First off, I'm a horrible judgment when people sing I'm like the meanest person ever because I have to be for like I have to be able to understand like when people are in order to teach singing, but it's really hard to turn off. And so sometimes people I was like, gosh, girl,
there was one
and it takes
an Elvis band,
and it takes it away,
Yeah. I completely agree. There's for one, a lot of it is mixed. Reasons why I hate the sound of a lot of bands is my bass player, who also is just like a wonderful sound guy, recording engineer. He calls it the drive-by sound. With like the super boomy bass drum and bass that's like you feel it in your chest when you walk into the room. It's like that wasn't there at that point. So it's always like, no, let's not do that. We don't want it to sound like it honestly a lot of times sounds like a worship band. Like you go to like a non-denominational church and like the bass drum is loud and the bass is just like this super loud and I feel like all venues try to mimic that now, but like that's not what it sounded like. Especially not on records, because if you get certain frequencies that you would record in, when they were cutting to vinyl, would make the needle bounce on a record.
Right.
So a lot of that was scooped out of the mix, so you wouldn't get those super low lows because the needle would be bouncing. So it's very mid-heavy, and it's always a struggle with sound guys to be like, no, we don't want that. They also want to mic every single drum on the drum set. In 1969, there was not a single mic on Rock's drum set. And that's
I was going to say, like, it changed drastically. I think, like, the sound that we associate with, like, concerts nowadays is not at all the sound that, like, we heard for Elvis. And so, it's got to take out.
If you tell a musician today that they're going to play without a monitor, like, they'll want to strangle you. But none of the CC band had monitors.
Right. They followed Elvis's ass.
Yeah, exactly. They followed Elvis. If you read that book, it's the Interviews with the PCB Band. It's the only thing that was difficult to hear because they just played well and they were standing close together was the piano. And the piano, they had a mic and an amplifier on it so they could hear the piano.
Right.
But everything else was just live in the room. And I guess a lot of people choose not to put themselves back in that time and say, hey, this is supposed to be 1970. I want it to sound like 1970 because it takes me out of the illusion when I hear it.
Yeah.
Oh well.
And so I had like the original PCB band was composed of James Burton, John Wilkinson, Jerry Sheff, Ronnie Tutt, and Lindy Harding. I was wondering then, how do you work with like I guess your version of the TCB band to recreate your shows? Like how did they contribute?
Well, I do have a decent amount of alternates that kind of swap out every once in a while. So that's usually where like any sort of tension in like, okay, we need to fix this part comes from. It's because like, oh, an alternate will have not played the show for 6 months, and 6 months ago we did a 1972 show, and now that's the way it is. Like we need to relearn this. But one of the things that often stress is just like play it exactly like what you hear. I want you to take yourself completely out of it. And I remember, I think, yeah, it was my bass player told me at one time something that he always wants to tell people is, do you think you're a better guitarist than James Burton? No? Then why are you trying to improve on what he did?
Exactly.
Like, just play it exactly like he did. He did it perfectly, so do exactly that. And yeah, I don't want it to sound like a bar band. I don't want to change any arrangements. I don't want it to be different at all. So luckily, I think everybody that I work with now knows that pretty well, that I want it to sound exactly like the record, or like, the YouTube version of whatever odd midnight show I send, and do it exactly that way.
And then the other thing that Elvis had was the 16-piece orchestra behind him. So what do you do to kind of replicate that sound?
So every once in a while we'll have live horns, and we've done live strings a handful of times. It's expensive, so like it's expensive. So it really depends on the venue. Like if we have a show where all of a sudden, the gross is huge, and I never want to shy away from, okay, let's spend a couple extra dollars and fill it out to make it seem like else's room. But Elvis was playing 10,000 seat rooms. I'm playing 500. So obviously his budget was a little bit bigger than mine to work with a band. So for one, a lot of times the keyboard player will double the orchestra part on the second keyboard, which kind of works. The best method I've found is to do two piano players. One of them doing the piano part and one of them doing the horns and strings. That seems to work super well. But yeah, that's one of the areas that I personally would really like to improve upon for my own show, and I am the harshest critic of myself. Like I post every day on social media, like every single day, because I love social media, I love marketing. I want to promote as hard as I can. But I swear, 2 days later, after every single video I post, 2 days later, I'm like, I need to take this down. Like, oh, the bass trombone is missing. Like, oh, we need to get rid of this. Oh, you pronounced that word the wrong way. Oh, you did this wrong. So, like, I'm very, very critical of myself, probably in a way that a lot of people don't realize. And I critique things about my show that like nobody would ever notice, hopefully. But yeah, that's one of the things I would love to improve on, is at minimum having at least two piano players all the time. But every once in a while, an agent will call and he'll say, "This is the budget. Can you do it?" I'm not going to deprive my guys of a $400-$500 payday just because I don't have a second piano player. So like, I'll go and I'll do it.
Definitely. So I guess a little bit more about performing. This is maybe more like fun and less technical. Is maybe if you could give us a little spotlight on some of Elvis's jewelry, some of his accessories and jumpsuits that he wore during That's the Way It Is. We know you also have a video about that. But how do you go about recreating that look, and what's your like research process into doing all the minute details like that?
So there are a good amount of replica companies out there. Like Being Enterprises does okay jewelry work, like the stuff will turn your finger green in a couple weeks if you don't put nail polish on it. Then Lowell Hayes makes a couple things. Like my lion ring that he wore in That's the Way It Is isn't specially made as an Elvis ring. It just happens to be a very, very close ring to it. Same thing with my wedding bands. They're not Elvis wedding bands. They look like the exact same ring. So that's kind of what I do for jewelry. And every once in a while, I'll have something custom made, like that EP guitar ring that he wore on Pinky and That's the Way It Is. I had that custom made, and then he started making reproductions for everybody else. But that was a hard one to find because nobody made it. And so that's kind of what I do for jewelry. I've been a lot stricter on myself for jumpsuits lately, where a lot of times a couple of years ago, I'd buy from, they're not like discount brands, but like they were not the most expensive option. And I've stopped doing that entirely because it's just like how poorly made they were. So I've started going to AJM jumpsuits. Oh my gosh, I've got like a fuzz from this chair. Oh, my nose looks like
I hate that.
but so I've been going to AJM Elvis jumpsuits, and they've been doing a great job. They did my white metal suit. They made a chain suit for me. That was great that I wore once, and then I realized that there were certain measurements on it that were off. So that's been at my tailor for like a month. So that'll be perfect. I also just ordered the crisscross chain suit that he wore in November '70, and a cobweb suit as well from '71. Because I'll get to that later. That's kind of where I think I'm headed. Like in the late next year, I might go to '71 and like see what happens. But they've been doing a great job, and I'm very specific where, like, when he first sent me pictures of the white metal suit, there were certain things that were wrong with it, and I was like, okay, you need to fix this, and this. The white metal suit, the zipper goes all the way to the top of the collar, which none of the other jumpsuits do. So like I had him do that, and had kick pleats in it at first. There were no kick pleats. The belt was the wrong material. I had him redo the belt. All the little things. I want the collar to like roll the right way. Where a lot of jumpsuits today, like, I have these like really stiff collars.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because Elvis's collars does not look like that. So I have my collars made a certain way, and all the different things like that to make sure it's as close as possible. For scarves, I like to use a big square scarf instead of the long skinny ones, because I'm fortunate enough where, and that's the way it is, or really the show after they stopped filming, mainly for that's the way it is, he started wearing scarves again. So I used a big square scarf, and he would throw out just that one. So I'm lucky enough where I don't have to throw out 30 scarves or whatever it is during a show, because that would add up pretty quickly to like 60, $75 a show, where I can just do the one and get away with it.
Yeah.
I was doing a little bit of jumpsuit research, but I know at Grayson they have like that's the way it is room. They just display four jumpsuits. We have the poncho, fringe, red ladder, and then the chain jumpsuit. Do you have a favorite out of those?
Of those, I would probably say the chain suit. I love it. Contra suit as well. I'm partial to the white metal suit, which I love. In Epic, there's 2 clips of footage of it, which I'm very excited about. And that was worn. They wrapped filming for that wrap filming, so they tell us, on August 13th during the dinner show. He wore that 14th on the dinner show. And they were still there doing audience shots, but they did get a little bit of Elvis while they were doing the audience shots. And of course, right? Which makes me think that when they did the same thing in Phoenix in September, that they probably did the same thing. But I'd love to see it. They have it. But actually, if you watch, I think it's the original cut of That's the Way It Is. It's the 1971. Right after Polk Salad Annie, they cut to a wide shot where Elvis goes, "Thank you." He's wearing a white metal suit in that wide shot. And it took me forever to notice it.
Yeah.
And then I paused and I zoomed in, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. So like of all the suits in That's the Way It Is, I lean towards it because it's kind of like it's a mystery in some ways.
Now I'm curious. Okay, Tessa was mentioning Epic. How much footage do you watch? Like That's the Way It Is, or from say just 69, 71, and how often?
I love it. I'd probably say, especially when I'm on the road, like if I'm driving to a tour, I will likely watch. Like when I drove to California in September, I watched That's the Way It Is probably 4 times. But a lot of times I mainly watch it around when I'm doing shows. So I'd say at least at absolute minimum a few times a month I'll watch That's the Way It Is. A lot of times I'll be just looking at individual songs, so I can compare my own footage to those songs. I do that quite a bit whenever I get new footage in, because a lot of times I'll see if there's anything that I get lucky with and can do a perfect side by side of. And then a lot of times I'll get so frustrated with myself because I did it wrong that I don't use it.
Is it almost like, I guess in that, I'm just thinking of that, um, the comparison of like side by side. Do you find that like it's almost like choreographed in your head and to the point that you practice singing and doing the moves, or do you feel more like it's like an organic expression? I know there's like a lot of ETs kind of have a different, like way of doing Elvis, where they either like embody Elvis, if that makes sense, or they like mimic Elvis, which is different. So like, do you find that you do one more than the other?
I think that I do both in the sense that because I watch it like so often and I study it so often, a lot of it just does come naturally, but it is choreographed because I've seen it so many times.
Right.
So yes, I am doing what Elvis did at the same moment that Elvis did it, but a lot of times I don't necessarily need to think about it. I've just done it so many times and seen it so many times that I'm not thinking about little things. The other day I saw a video of myself doing blue suede shoes, and I did like this weird shoulder thing at the end that I was like, what was that? And then I went and I saw Elvis first, and I was like, oh, he did it. Okay. I'm happy with that. I never want to get to the point where I'm just like making up my own moves, because that bothers the heck out of me when I see somebody doing that. And it bothers me even more when they're changing the melody of the songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I watch it so much, it does come naturally in a lot of ways where I don't need to actually think about what I'm doing. But then that'll get to the point where I've been doing it what I think is the right way for so long, and then I'll need to correct something, and I'll think about that thing when I correct it, and then it'll come naturally eventually.
Cool. Right. So I think we got you're very. I am a perfectionist. I'm getting that from you. Yes. So what is something, I guess, maybe I want to continue with this epic conversation. What is something that maybe you're hoping to see from Epic that maybe you've just, I guess, being inspired to do, but you're assuming that you're going to see this footage in Epic? Like things we've only heard about, but you're
here is the interesting part. Somebody, without me asking, may have sent me somebody filming the screen for the first hour.
Okay.
So
it was not me.
So Megan went and saw it at the Toronto Film Festival. I did not see it yet.
Lucky.
I will say I'm the kind of person who obviously I've seen Elvis footage and I've seen things on Instagram, and I've watched the movies, like the concert movies. But I'm the kind of person that feels like this is a new angle, and like I don't know, like is it like because I just don't really like focus on footage.
That's not really you notice,
right. And I'd love to see it. And the thing I'm most excited about is the higher quality of visuals.
Right. And that's what a lot of it is.
It'll make it feel like more real. And I was just watching the 68 special the other day, and I was like, I wish this was clearer. Like I know this is the remastered version, but it feels like old because it's less, high definition. Exactly. And so, I want to see it like in that same super high def. Like I think that would make a really big impact. I guess, is it, will there be things from Epic without a spoiler, I suppose? Will there be things from Epic, either what you've seen or what you hope to see, that you're going to incorporate into your show that kind of like are a little different than what you might have thought?
There is already one that I first saw in the trailer. That at the end of Poke Salad Annie, where he does the jump. He did this weird thing where he like threw his hands out and then like back into his body that I started doing right away because I never actually noticed it. But a lot of it is just alternate angles. There's that new clip of Elvis in the white metal suit walking out, which we see in the picture that's on the TIFF website. And also there's that clip of Elvis in the white metal suit on Lovely Tender Kissing That Girl in the Front Row that was in one of the trailers. So there's not a ton that's like brand new, like stuff that we've never seen before. A lot of it is alternate angles and great quality of things that we've seen before. And a lot of those are show moves that like we don't really think about or fully notice because of the angle that it was shot in. There's new footage. There's a rehearsal of Runaway.
That's what I really like to see was the way that it spliced it, even just in the trailer, between the rehearsal footage and doing the moves, and then splicing it with like the actual performance. I loved seeing that. I was like, oh, I never really thought about him like thinking of this. I guess to me, when I was watching it, I was thinking, obviously not that everything's spontaneous, but that a lot of it was just like in the moment energy. But to know the like minute planning that he was doing of like the moves and stuff, I guess that was a little eye-opening for me to think like, oh, it wasn't just a lot of the time he did do things I think that were like natural, just like out of
I think it was really his natural way of conducting the band.
Yeah.
And it was his natural way of signaling Ronnie Tut what was happening. Like the whole Coke salad montage is like three different shows and rehearsals all spliced together in like the greatest way possible. And one of the but there's new songs in the part of the movie that I don't have. But I don't have that. That would be illegal. I did not ask for it. I just happened to have been sent it. I loved watching it. But there was another guy who like filmed a couple things and posted it on YouTube, and I did see that there was footage of Never Been to Spain and Hampton Roads that has never been released before. So that's all brand new. There was another song too, and now it's totally escaping me as to what it was, but it was from Hampton Roads in 1972. And that's gonna
That I don't really remember what I watched.
Yeah, oh my gosh. There was a full new song of footage that we had never had from on tour. It was Never Been to Spain, and there was one more, and I cannot remember what it is. There was another version of it in Elvis on tour, but from this show, we'd never seen it before. Yeah, there was new footage of Runaway, rehearsing it. That had never been seen before. Just a few new little things. There was footage of the merchandise stand in Epic. Of the girl at the merchandise stand that I've never seen the light of day before. Like, I love that because my merchandise is based off of Elvis's merchandise.
That's nice.
Yeah. So like I have the big square scarves with Elvis on it and the face around the four corners, and like all of the publicity shots. Like I have recreations of all of those shots, and that's what I use for merchandise. And it's all stuff from circa 70, 71. I've got like these big That's the Way It Is posters with my face on it. And I have I've got an international hotel like champagne bucket thing that I put the posters into. Stuff like that. So it was really cool to see that. And there was also there was something in the dressing room before the opening show, and it was just Charlie, like looking at the cameraman with these like weird wide eyes. That was so there are new things, but a lot of it is just angle differences.
I'm excited to see it, but I'm worried everyone's been hyping it up, and I'm worried it's gonna be like I'm gonna be like, yeah, it was good, but I don't know because I don't know all the angle stuff, and I
right. This is what I'll say about it, and I've said a lot about it already. This is what I'll say about it. It gives you the most charismatic take on Elvis that we've ever seen before. I think it captures Elvis's charisma and Elvis's likability in a way that's never really been shown before with things like Elvis on Tour. That's the way it is. It purposely picks Elvis as his most charming possible and splices it all together to create the most charming version of Elvis that's ever been shown on screen. And I think Baz has really finally done what That's the Way It Is and what Elvis on Tour failed to do, which is make me feel like to make you feel like you're actually there in the room, because the editing style and the quality is just so unbelievably good in a way that like Dennis Sanders couldn't really do with That's the Way It Is.
Right.
That's a good way of saying it. You'll be in for a treat, Tessa.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's very good. And it's so sad because there's already a good amount of it on YouTube, just like individual songs. And it's somebody recording a screen, it's not really the same. Mine's recording a screen. But you know.
You'll
You'll
be surprised.
Okay, I'm ready. So just kind of like some little like let's start wrapping things down. So what is your personal connection to That's the Way It Is? Clearly you're very faithfully trying to recreate sort of put us in this with your show and put us in this like atmosphere of we're in That's the Way It Is. So what does this era mean to you like emotionally? How do you feel? What's your connection to it?
Well, really, it was the first Elvis that I ever actually wanted to perform. So, like I said, I first saw John Stamos sing Jailhouse Rock, and then I looked up the original Elvis version, and I thought, like, this is the coolest guy in the world. Like, this music is great. But it wasn't just like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be an Elvis impersonator. Like, that never happened. I did around the same time start singing at open mic nights and stuff. And I was doing a little bit of Elvis, but mostly I was doing like Led Zeppelin and like all sorts of other music. And I started doing like nursing homes and stuff, but I wasn't necessarily singing Elvis. I was singing Elvis and Dion and Bob Dylan and Sam Cooke and Rockin' Robin and like all the different stuff from the 50s. And after I saw that's I didn't actually watch That's the Way It Is. I saw Suspicious Minds on YouTube from August 11th dinner show. And it was at that point where I was like, I need to do this. And I had this whole grand idea because at the time I was about to go to high school and I had auditioned for a school of the arts that was here. And it was so sad because I didn't get in, but it was because I was a guitar player. They didn't have guitar as an option, so I had to audition for playing percussion, which like I'm not a big percussionist. But anyways, I didn't get into the school. I wasn't that disappointed in it because like they didn't actually have a program for like what I did. But I had this idea that with all the orchestra kids that were like at the school, like I'm gonna get this band together and I'm gonna put together this whole orchestra and have this show, and do exactly what I saw in this video. And this has really just been 10 years of trying to create that as faithfully as possible. It's the first Elvis that I really fell in love with the sound, the vibe, all of it. Because for a while I just kind of like drunk the Kool-Aid that Elvis in the 70s in Vegas was just boring and a shell of his former self. But it was so just unbelievably untrue. I think the second song from the 70s that I fell in love with was also I Just Can't Help Believin'. So there's like two songs from That's the Way It Is. And I've just always wanted to do it. And like, just quite frankly, on tour, he doesn't look as good as he did. And that's the way it is. He's not as raw as he used to be. He was still talented, but it's not that's the way it is.
I saw something interesting in that same book I just read, the Come Back with the King, that it said something about that I'd never really thought of before about the differences even in the jumpsuits of how they were white and clean and like that this in 69 we had the black situation and then in sort of 70 and that's the way it is with these white jumpsuits that are very clean and clear, but like in Elvis on tour kind of era there's all these different colors and patterns and details and it's less like I don't know, minimalist, like it's more of a flashy thing. And I think that really differentiates between That's the Way It Is and like a little later. That I hadn't thought of it in terms of jumpsuits before. I just like that you can kind of mark this difference in jumpsuits. It was really interesting to me.
Yeah, especially once you get into the embroidery and stuff. I think that once he made the jump from Bill Ballou making the suits to Jean Boucher being the primary designer under the company of Bill Ballou. I think Jean was just kind of like using Elvis as his own personal canvas to make like the most elaborate weird things that he wanted to make to fit his like whatever zodiac he wanted at the time. But with Bill, I think he was actually trying to frame Elvis in the most flattering way possible. Where Jean, and no offense, Jean, like I'm sorry, but he was using Elvis as his own canvas to try to make something elaborate and artistically fulfilling for him, while Bill was making what was best for Elvis.
Yeah, and great. You were talking about some of your favorite songs that drew you into Elvis. Is there one in particular that you enjoyed performing above the others? Something that maybe has your favorite theatrics?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Suspicious Minds is always fun. Like, I'd be lying if I said that I just didn't love doing Suspicious Minds because it was the first thing that I wanted to do. Um, but there are certain songs that I really get a lot out of doing, like I Just Can't Help Believing and I've Lost You, because there's a lot of nuanced vocals in there that specifically over the past year I've worked on replicating a lot better. If you go and you watch a video of me doing I've Lost You in May compared to one now, like it's a totally different song. I'm ashamed of how I was performing those songs in May. And I get a lot of gratification off of doing those songs properly and singing them the right way, in a way that not a lot of ETAs do these songs because they're so focused on the low for some reason. So to be able to do them and to do them right and well, and not just like, oh, well, one off, I'm singing at an Elvis festival, let's bring out I Just Can't Help Believe, and I've listened to that song a handful of times, I think I can sing it. It's like, no, I've listened to that song every day.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing, so you mentioned that you have a book that's coming out. Have you tell us a little bit about the book, what people are going to learn from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been dealing with a publishing company. They told me it would be out this week, and now it's still not. So hopefully next week it will be. It's going to be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kindle, and Apple Books, and all like the mainstream distributors. It's a book called Elvis 1971. Heavy is the Head, as in like heavy is the head of he who wears the crown. And basically, it's a biography expanding Elvis's career in 1971. And the way that I went about it was I took Peter Verolnik's Elvis Day by Day, and I looked at the calendar of Elvis's life. And then I went through everybody who was around Elvis in the year 1971. So the TCB band, Priscilla, Sonny West, Charlie, Joyce Boba, Barbara Lee, and a few others. And I just read all of those books. And by the way, if you haven't read Barbara Lee's book, there's a lot about Steve McQueen, but just ignore that. The parts about Elvis are really interesting, and things that stories that you've never heard before. So same thing with Joyce's book, actually. So I took all these stories and
Joyce's book. Sorry, I just thought about Joyce's book. This is crazy. Oh my God. I think I read the unedited version.
Oh yeah,
It's like girl.
Yeah, she was pretty wild in her writing. It's like that's a take a cold shower after reading the book kind of.
Oh my gosh. I was reading it in public and I was like, oh my.
Yeah, Barbara's the exact same way, by the way.
Okay, downloading.
Yeah, Barbara's book is actually really good, and you get a lot of interesting stories. Kathy's book too is another one that I read. All the people who were around at this time, and I was able to fill in the gaps and be amazed at how well their stories line up. Where it's like Joyce left on February 21st, and then Barbara's like, I arrived on February 22nd.
That's so funny.
And like it all it's the calendar. It's like, good job, Joe Esposito. You planned them all perfectly. And like they all fit each other. And like Kathy Westmoreland, there was a while like when they first started dating where she was staying in Elvis's room on tour every night. And then one night she wrote in her book, he was like, all right, you're in your own room tonight, Kathy.
Yeah.
And you look at the date and when it was right when Barbara came in.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh, like it all lines up. So I took all those stories and I lined them up and I used them to fact check one another to create probably it's at least triple the length of like how long 1971 lasts in Careless Love. So like what I call the most expansive look at Elvis's life in 1971. I've taken a lot more other stories that like you just don't hear and added them to the mix.
What's your favorite? So Megan runs a book club. This actually how we met is I joined her book club. And so I really, for me, I know when I first became an Elvis fan, and I think for Megan the same, the first thing that like I felt I had to do was read about him. and just learn more by reading books about him. It started with, I don't know, I was crazy. I started with the Quranic ones. Like that was like my first. I was like, I need to know. Like, these are like the
that's serious. That's some serious.
Yeah, that was serious. Like
I tried Last Year Nemesis first, and like I couldn't get past all the Tupelo stuff. Like Elvis was born this way on this day, and all this stuff about his family tree. Like, oh, it bored the heck out of me. And I picked it up again like 2 years later.
Yeah.
And
Like,
I chose
know
like George's book instead.
Yeah. For me, like I didn't know anything, coming in. I'd seen the Elvis movie, and then I was like, is any of this like real? Because it was yeah. And I went and saw it in the movie theater like 5 times. In between each time, I'm like starting this book and Googling this and all that. But definitely I became like a book person. I've read over 100 books now about all this, which is like a big feat. I don't think I've read that many books about anything ever. And so I guess what I was asking is what's like your favorite book about all this? Or
Man, that is
a couple
really
tough.
We were just talking about this, and like this sounds bad to say Joyce's book, but I love Joyce's book.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I like the books that don't tell the same story over and over again. And hers is one of those books, where a lot of the other ones just like kind of copy each other. Joe Esposito's book, one of them, Good Rockin' Tonight in particular, also tells a lot of stories about the mid-60s that like nobody ever talks about. Like you don't, if you read all the other books, you would never get the idea that Elvis was like smoking a bunch of pot in the 60s until you read Joe's book, and it's like, oh wait, yeah, Elvis was like everybody else in the 60s until like 68, 69, and then he becomes against everything. Like that.
I guess one of the things that people being like, why would you read all those books, is like you read all the books and then you get all sides of the story, and you kind of like the same event is told by all these different people, but you also have to take everything with a grain of salt. Like, oh, this person added this detail. I've literally never heard that from anyone else. I need like
the eye injection story from 71.
Yes.
So that was told in Barbara's book, Joyce's book, Harley's book, and Dr. Nick's book.
Yes.
So like I got the accounts of all of them and was able to put them together in this book. And it's so interesting because like Joyce will talk about it, like the doctor comes in and gives this, absolutely chilling statement, and we need to give you an injection in your eyeball with no anesthetic. And you'd think it was the first time it had ever happened, but it was actually the third one that he had over 2 days. And like it all just starts to fill in. Same thing with there was this thing on the plane going to Minneapolis in 1971 that Kathy talked about, and it was in another one of the books that I read too. You got kind of all the different sides of the story that I thought were very interesting.
Absolutely. I'll say like I think some of my favorites, they're usually the ones about the people who talk about music and talk about singing. I think it's crazy because there's like that's my passion project would be to write a book about Elvis's voice. And I'm like already cooking ideas in my head about it. But those like Kathy's book is one of my favorites for that. I like Charlie's book because it has some of those, he can talk about, oh, Elvis, I taught Elvis this more, and I'm like, tell me more, of like what did that do? And Dr. Nick's book, I think they all kind of talk about his overall health, and that's so interesting to me. But there's other parts of the book where you're like, huh? But everything you have to take.
And a lot of these people just have memories. Like Joe talks all about the 1969 tour that didn't happen.
Right.
And you just have to remember, like, this happened a long time ago. A lot of it word-for-word transcripts probably aren't 100% accurate. That was something also interesting about. But sometimes they are though, because you'll hear Elvis make the same jokes, or like do the same jokes to different people at different times. There was one story. There's a story in Joyce's book about Elvis, her coming in, and Elvis was wearing a wig, and like took forever to notice. That same story is in Barbara's book, just in a different location. Just like he was just doing this gag all the time to different people. There was another story in my book that I wrote that I was able to pinpoint down in the newspaper. It was either in Sonny's book or it was in Elvis What Happened. about 18-year-old girl, like a high school senior, who Elvis saw in Lake Tahoe, who he dated for like 2 weeks, and then they found her like ODing in his room.
Yes. Yeah.
And
That's
they
right.
paid the hospital staff like $10,000 not to say anything about it.
Yeah.
And but like all Sonny says is that her name is Paige. So I was like going through like can I find anything else about this Paige? And I eventually found a tabloid report from 1978 when all the tabloid stuff was coming out about Elvis. And it's like high school senior who overdosed with Elvis finally tells her story. And it was in like the Dallas Star.
Yeah, like finding. So how do you think that like your passion for doing this research kind of like I guess reflects on your performance as well of like clearly you're also trying to not just have like this I don't want to say career, but like a career as a performer and also like kind of Elvis's history and like do you think those things go hand in hand?
For sure. You do get a lot more about Elvis' mentality, and one of the things I loved about writing my 1971 book is a lot of them, especially with the girlfriends, start in 1970. So I got a lot more stories about that kind of thing than I ever thought that I would. Specifically, Joyce's book, when she was there in August, right after that Zoetis filming had wrapped, she's talking about all the death threats that Elvis was getting, and how Elvis was walking around the stage, like mumbling under his breath, "I wish that SOV would shoot me already." And saying that kind of thing backstage, and it gets you into the mentality of what was Elvis doing at this point. He's not only hopped up and energetic because he's trying to prove himself. He's also hopped up and energetic because he thinks he might be shot at any moment
Right.
on stage. Like little things like that. It just you get it a lot more about. I love learning about what was going on at the time in like Rick was it was David Samuel's book. That whole thing with that newspaper report that came out about Elvis' stepbrothers rude to fans. There's a picture of Elvis backstage in Madison Square Garden walking, and Ricky's like in the shadows, like sulking. And he's like, "That's it. This is the day after that happened." I love that kind of thing. Getting the behind the scenes of what was going through Elvis's mind when he was on stage, because it's so easy to watch Elvis and think, "This is Elvis. This is the greatest entertainer ever." But he was still a human being who had his ups and downs and was dealing with other things while he was on stage.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I love books. Like you mentioned Joyce's book. It might be the craziest things that you ever heard, and probably shouldn't be putting in books, but I think everything reflects who Elvis was. It could be the most off-the-wall story, but at the same time, it's like it tells me a little bit more about his mindset, and just let me get into his head a little bit and let me learn about his inner thoughts.
For sure, because everybody sees Elvis as so larger than life, which he was, but he was still a person, and that's something that I wanted to explore a lot in kind of the lens that I wrote through. Is that in 1971 is kind of a complex part of his life where he was still at his best and he was still at his peak as a performer, but RCA, the Colonel, the hotel, like nobody really seems to care anymore. Where they're like, okay, like we've seen it now, and we can just sell budget label stuff of old movie soundtracks and make just as much money as if you were to have a hit record right now that you would cut in the studio. So it doesn't really matter what you put out as long as you give us like 4 albums. Like they don't have to be good, just give us 4 albums. So it's this weird thing where Elvis is making tons of money. He loves to spend it. He has all these weird obsessions with like drug enforcement and law enforcement and all these the JC awards, all these different things where he's like trying to be Mr. Model American. But he's still like the biggest rock star in the world. But nobody around him seems to care anymore. Like there's like he's Elvis. Okay. It doesn't matter if he has hit records. It doesn't matter if he's fulfilled in what he's recording. So it's kind of that's what I wanted to write through. It was like it's Elvis, not necessarily at the beginning of the end, but it's Elvis like right before the unraveling started to happen, where everything started to add up.
Yeah. So I guess just for a little closing stuff. So your book is coming out. Remind us, title, what day, when can we get it?
Okay, well, that's a really good question because I was going to answer that. The title is Elvis, Heavy is the Head. Elvis 1971, Heavy is the Head is the tagline. It will be out on Amazon, Kindle, Apple Books, all the mainstream platforms. You'll be able to get it.
Awesome.
And hopefully it will be out by the end of the week. And if not, I will at least have it out by Elvis's birthday because it starts on January 8th, 1971. So I better get it out for the 55th anniversary of the first word.
That'll be perfect.
Awesome.
And so can you tell us like where can people find you online? Maybe some projects you're working on, some shows that you're working on. When can people see you? That kind of stuff.
Well, you can find me on Instagram. It's at real.stone. And all my other platforms, my website, Facebook, TikTok, it's all Matt Stone as Elvis. So it's mattstoneaselvis.com. You can find my tour schedule on my website. We're going to be in lots of new states this year, and a lot of them that we haven't even announced yet. So we'll be all over the place for a lot of the new places that we're going to. We're going to be sticking in That's the Way It Is. And then for the places that we're returning to, we're likely going to be moving the show to 1971. Both as I just wrote a book about it, so it's kind of cool to just kind of dive into it, and also just so everybody has something fresh and new. So you'll get a few new songs that you didn't get before, like "Impossible Dream," "It's Impossible," "It's Over,"
Awesome.
"My Babe."
Will you be at Elvis's birthday celebration?
Oh my gosh, I wish I would be, but if you are driving home on that day, we will be in Pyramid, Tennessee on January 10th.
Awesome.
So if you're driving home 2 days later and you're still in Eastern Tennessee, we'll be there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. It was really fun getting to do a bit of a deep dive on That's the Way It Is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I have to say, honestly, this has been probably my favorite podcast I've done because I don't really want to talk about me, my career, or anything else. I just want to talk about Elvis. So this has been great because that's all I want to do.
Awesome. We're so glad. Yeah, once we realize, because sometimes it's hard. It's like you want to talk to people about their career, but when it's someone like you who we know you're putting out this book and like you're doing a lot of research and I'd say you're an Elvis historian. I consider myself one. So it's really important to be able to talk about people's different niches in this community.
That's my end goal is and when I'm 50, I don't still want to be doing Elvis because I don't want to keep doing Elvis past when Elvis died. I don't think it's a good look for his legacy to be doing it at 70. It's just a bad idea. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be Ernst Jorgensen or Peter.
Yes, me too. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
That's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Chronicles of the King podcast.
If you love what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps bring the King's story to life.
You can follow us on social media at the Chronicles of the King for updates, upcoming series, and more. We'd love to hear your input and any of your favorite Elvis moments.
Until next time, keep rocking and rolling, and we'll be back soon with more stories from Elvis's extraordinary life.
With TLC, we'll see you on the next episode of the Chronicles of the King.